Ready to go? Okay. Many thanks and apologies for being a few minutes late to the meeting. This is the public meeting of the Shareholder Committee, chaired by myself and Councillor de Gorn in attendance. We've got several items on the agenda, but what we're going to do is work through the first three items and first four items and then bring each company in individually as far as the shareholders are concerned. Okay, so first item on the agenda, are there any declarations of interest?
I don't have any declarations.
No, okay. Second, minutes. We read the minutes, are they approved?
Happy to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to approve them. Okay, am I working off the wrong set?
You just need to turn it over the side of the side.
Oh, right, okay, that's fine. Sorry, I thought you were handing me another agenda. Apologies. There you go. Thank you.
So just on item 3, we'll deal with those briefly in public session,
Yep.
but then for the majority of the discussion will be in a private session. So I'm happy to support the recommendation to exclude press and public for that confidential item.
Okay, and then we've got public participation.
Yeah, just on that to report, we don't have any public speakers registered. I have had some correspondence with one resident who didn't actually ask for these items to be raised at the meeting, so I think we take those separately. But then also I've had a representation from Lars Cram this afternoon, which was specifically asking about climate emergency and the sort of that being part of the shareholder committee's responsibilities. So I think at this point we just note that and ask officers if they can look at that representation for a report at a future meeting about how we deal with that as that.
My understanding as well is that the climate change is embedded right the way across the council. We've got key performance indicators in all areas. I haven't read what Lars
I think he was
through.
referring to specifically
Right, so
our arm's length responsibilities as shareholders, if you see what I mean.
Okay, so I'll have a look at it. I haven't had time to read it and we'll get back at the next meeting.
Specifically in relation to reporting to us as council shareholder or these untitled companies, but it's in order to make any changes in terms of what governments or business companies want to say, or we take on another further detail and come back to the committee as well today.
Okay, so as Councillor de Gorn said, it's noted and we'll come back at the next meeting. Okay, many thanks. So, unless I've missed anything, that's the end of agenda item 4. Yep. Okay, so going into agenda item 5, we'll be talking about Yorwaste at this point. Do we close the meeting or how does it work now?
So, Chair, you could go through each of the items, because each of the items has a public-facing report, and hear from that. If there are any questions at that point in more detail, you'd have to go into part 2, so that the respective companies could probably give you fuller answers, but that's dependent on your question. So you can either do it on an item-by-item agenda, or you can do all of the agendas in the public domain and then go into part 2, the confidential section, and then do all of the items again in the confidential section.
Okay, why don't we go straight through, and if we come across anything confidential, then we'll take it into part 2.
Can I just to say that I believe in terms of the timescales for our meeting, I believe the item from Veritau, you wanted to deal with that one first because you have to leave.
If I may, I'm also the Chief Officer supporting the Corporate Scrutiny meeting, which is taking place this evening at 5:30. I'm the link officer for Veritau and here to support as the point of contact as the Chief Officer for Veritau. Therefore, with your support, would it be possible for the Veritau item to be brought forward so that I could go and join the Corporate Scrutiny meeting?
Absolutely.
So, thank you. Would you like me to continue?
Yes.
So, Chair, this is the first shareholder committee where we have the Council's appointed link officers here to support the committee, which acknowledges the new governance arrangements which you've put in place to support yourself and Councillor de Gorn. In my capacity as the link officer, I liaise very regularly with my colleagues Max, Thomas and Richard Smith from Veritau. We have brought forward for consideration this afternoon a report that sets out the details on the 2020-2021 finance and performance, and also details the sort of financial position for the company. So there is a brief covering report for consideration by yourselves here this afternoon, and my colleagues Max and Richard will be able to enter into more detail from the Veritau company's perspective, if that may assist, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the report, which is detailed, and I just had a couple of questions on it. I don't think any of them go into confidentiality. If they do, please stop me. Yep. Andy, have you got any questions?
No, I think so.
Okay, I had three. Reading all of the updates and everything else, could you give me an idea of the impact of the local government reorganisation? I know we discussed it slightly last time. It's just reading the detail, it's going to have an impact.
Okay, I mean, obviously the government's decision has provided us with clarity now about the future. Our two principal shareholders are York and North Yorkshire, so the decision is actually favourable for us. So we're happy with the way forward now. In terms of our business, I mean, subject to the shareholders being happy to continue with the current arrangement, there's no reason why there will be any substantial change to the business. There are some things which we will need to address. First of all is the fact that we have a subsidiary company called Veritau North Yorkshire, and that was set up to provide services to the 5 of the 7 North Yorkshire district councils. That company will effectively cease to have any purpose after the vesting date, and therefore, with the agreement of both shareholders, we would look to wind it up and transfer the staff and assets and any liabilities to the holding company Veritau. So, in terms of the volume of work, we don't anticipate any significant change. We don't currently provide services to all the North Yorkshire districts, so the sort of net effect will be, we estimate, will be about the same level of service required by both York and North Yorkshire. The only other thing that we are aware of is that there are some staff within some of the North Yorkshire districts who currently provide internal audit and sort of other services that we provide. So we need to have a discussion with those district councils about what will happen to those services and the staff who are currently providing them. But overall, we are not seeing this as a major risk to the business or anything that's going to unduly impact on our ability to provide services to York or North Yorkshire.
Okay, I thought it would have an impact, so it's interesting to hear that.
So just on that, can I ask, would that North Yorkshire subsidiary sort of effectively wind down as the operation of those districts ceases to exist? Because obviously you're working sort of alongside them, but looking at accounts and so on, which there might be some residual accounts presumably once the merger takes place.
Certainly in the run-up to the vesting date, we don't anticipate any reduction. The work that we do is required. There's no it will have no impact. In fact, we actually think there will be a need for us to provide additional support and services to those districts in that period running up to April 2023. After that date, the purpose for delivering the service just ceases to exist, so we won't be needed. But clearly North Yorkshire will have a lot of additional need for support to sort of sort out the sort of merge of systems and services and teams. So we do anticipate for a period of time following the vesting date there will be probably additional demand for our sort of types of services.
Okay, the only other question that I had, because you've just answered one of the other ones, is all of the IT costs are in the Veritau Limited, they're not anywhere else. Is that because you're divesting of the Veritau North Yorkshire, or is that, or what is the logic for it? So when you were looking through the accounts, they were all lumped together in the major company and didn't seem to be split out as costs into the other ones?
Okay, in reality, most of the staff, most of the systems and costs are within Veritau, but we recharge those costs out to the, So, because it's really a people-based service, we would charge on the basis of the time spent, and that includes an overhead recovery, so including IT and everything else,
I think that was my series of questions. Yep, it was. Many thanks. Have you got anything to ask of us before you leave?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you ever so much. And once again, apologies for holding you up.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to get Yorwaste? You just keep going, but I'm never sure if I stopped and started. Many thanks for coming this afternoon, Delphi. As ever, extremely full and easy. Yours is the easiest to understand shareholder reports that I get, so many thanks for that.
I'll just do a very quick introduction. This report provides the shareholder committee details of the outturn for Yorwaste of last financial year and the first quarter trading update. The report's also highlighting some of the pressures and issues facing the waste industry and Yorwaste in particular over the next year or so. I'll pass over detailed commentary. Sandy would normally be here, but he's on leave this week, so we've got Richard Bates, who's the Commercial Director of Yorwaste, and Chris Veach, the Head of Finance at Yorwaste, who'll be able to answer any of the detailed questions that you've got.
Just on, I'm interesting to read your report about resource waste strategy and the longer term aftercare costs. I don't know if you can say anything about, I note that you're saying that the liability is assessed periodically, updates. Is that something which we have any concerns about longer term? Obviously it's a legacy like the coal board, and there is other operations that you have to continue with the maintenance afterwards.
You certainly do. It is very difficult to say with any certainty what those consultants will find. As the report says, it is something we'll do within the next 2 years. We feel that there is an accrual there that was sufficient the last time it was done, but it is very difficult to say what that impact will be. And if it suggests that the costs are greater, then it is a cost that then would need to be reviewed and looked at.
Indeed.
But can I just clarify, will this be the first assessment since it closed, in effect?
In terms of Herwood Win?
Yeah.
I think it is the first assessment.
Well, it's the first one since it's closed, but obviously it was included in the assessment initially.
Mm-hmm.
But it's obviously going to be an update from that position.
Because the idea, every tonne of waste that goes in, you accrue something for the costs thereafter.
Right, I see. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're not surprised, I've got a few questions. First of all, to say thank you, how tightly you ran this when you saw what was coming in the pandemic and the differences that you made to make sure that the business was going to function successfully. 10 out of 10, gentlemen. Really, really good. Following on from that, I've seen what you're doing, or I can understand a little bit about what you're doing with the drivers. We all know that the HGV situation in the UK is interesting, shall we put it that way? Could you just talk me through what your plans are to make sure that we keep the trucks moving?
Yeah, well, clearly 100,000 or thereabout estimate of driver shortage in the UK. From our point of view, a number of things we've done. First of all, we engage with our current workforce, make sure that they understand the benefits of working for us and encourage their retention. We have, however, lost some because there are companies out there offering very sizable incentives to join them. We have looked at the targeting of our advertising. As I've just said, there are benefits to working for a company like ours. Not everybody wants to go and sleep in their cab and drive the length and breadth of the UK. Also, we have a 4-day on, 3-day off rota. So that means that whilst it may not be at a weekend, you're getting a 3-day weekend. And for some, where work-life balance is important, that's who we're looking to reach out to and recruit. We also have placed an ad with Indeed in such a way that it's near the top of the opportunities that exist. And I have to say that we have had a reasonable response so far. So that in itself is good. Beyond that, we're looking to train people internally. And give them the opportunity and then tie them into a longer term arrangement with us as a company. And also we have planners who used to drive, who have returned to driving for us because we, figuratively speaking, have to keep the wheels moving. And also we've even had some managers who've done the odd shift. So we see it as a difficult situation that needs close monitoring. At this moment in time, whilst it will be a challenge, I feel that we're just about coping.
Excellent. Not for now, but that's excellent work. Not for now, but next time, if you could give me an update on how you're approaching apprenticeships in this area, and also females, because there's less than 1% of the HGV drivers are females, for good, bad, and indifferent reasons, but just work-life balance, if you do 4 on, 3 off, those types of things. It'd be interesting to understand. Is that okay?
That's fine.
So that was the first question. The second one is, can you confirm that all recyclates are staying inside Europe for me, please?
Yes, I can. It was clear from the client. About 80% of the segregated recycler is in the UK, and all of it's within Europe.
Brilliant. Thank you. And then finally, I hear that there are plans for Herwood Wind to do with solar panels. So I'm not asking for any details now, but if we could be involved in the discussions from a fairly early start, I would be most grateful, because I think that has got a great opportunity for all concerned.
We put solar on the head office, and that actually is a net benefit in a year. We are looking at the potential of an investment in a small installation that we are working with officers of CYC so that it can plug into other plans to make sure that we maximise the benefit.
Fantastic. They were all my questions. Councillor de Bourne? No? Okay. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Shall I go and get the other next ones? I'm sure. If there isn't. If there isn't, there isn't. This is a daft question.
I thought it was YPO next to be on the agenda.
It is. It's YP, but it's okay. It's fine. Sorry, apologies. I assumed that they were sat outside. Go on, Trudy, you're going to see how many times I say apologies in this meeting. Be a record. It's fine. So who are we addressing this to? Oh, okay. Your YPO. See, I just take Debbie as being God. We know that she knows what she's doing. All right. So I've got a couple of questions. You're not surprised? No. So do you want to go? Do you want to say anything before we ask you a few questions?
Yeah, it would just be, so just as a reminder that we are one of 13 local authority shareholders of YPO, formerly known as the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation, and they do have their own limited company, which is YPO Procurement Holdings. And so, understandably, their sales figures have been impacted by the pandemic, the lockdown. Their primary customers tend to be schools, so understandably they have been impacted. And the reports are confidential annexes due to commercial sensitivity, but I can say that even though sales have dropped and profits are reduced, they are still making a profit. So in that respect, there's nothing too much for us to worry about at this stage. They run on a calendar year, so their year is January to December rather than April to March. And so obviously they're more than halfway through their financial year now, so they will be reviewing to see what the rest of their financial year looks like and revising those forecasts. So we'll have more of an update at the next meeting.
Okay, sorry. Not for this meeting, but for the next meeting, if we could have an outline of how they believe schools are going to look going forward. And I know it's how long's a piece of string question, you know, because that is the backbone of this business. And it's who's going where, doing what and how. So if we could just have an outline of what the thoughts are on that and how we can support. Yeah. And then the next one is to do with the Procurement Limited. It's not this. So do you want to say anything about that?
No, that's fine. We can go straight to any questions on that one.
Andy, do you have any questions? I only had a couple of questions. Page 21, 4.4, the EdTech investment. Could you just give me a bit of explanation on that, please?
Yeah, the EdTech investment was the purchase of a complete business, which was, you're really testing my knowledge now about, it was to do with schools, obviously, and it's an IT system, but beyond that, I don't know, so I'd have to get you some more details on that separately, yeah.
If you could, it's basically 4.4, and then 4.2, I'm sure it must be in 4.6. It was just those two. If you could come back with a bit more detail for me, I'd be grateful.
Have that. I do have that.
No, that's fine.
Detail,
and I wouldn't expect you to have everything in your head on the minute detail. But they were my two issues. Okay. And then there was a little bit, but it's on page 23, so we can go through that on a separate basis. It's the variance. Okay. And that was it. That was all I had on those. Okay. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. So then we're into City of York Trading Limited, aren't we? No, that's Veritau. We've done that. Sorry. City of York Trading. That's right. Gosh, you two took a lot today.
Yeah, so this is the report from the City of York trading update. So
I will pass over to Karen to take us through the detail if you've got any questions. I think just for assurances, we work very closely with City of York Trading on a kind of weekly basis, and Karen and I and my team work really closely. So I'll pass over to Karen.
I'm happy to ask any questions on the basis of the confidential report. The company's been busy the first part of the year so far. We are making a profit currently, in considerably more than we were at this time last year. We're busy pretty much in all divisions, which is positive, and we've done continued amount of support with CYC in terms of COVID marshals, COVID testers, COVID contact testing staff as well, so tracing staff. We've also had challenge with HGV drivers, but we've managed to recruit some. I've got 2 more starting this week. Again, we've based it around the benefits of working for a local service rather than long haul, rather than nights away. The hours are slightly more reasonable, and the work's a lot more contained, I guess, in that sense. I don't know if you've got anything else that you want to ask.
Councillor de Gorn, any questions?
So in terms of just get a feel for how you see things moving as sort of you stop providing COVID marshals and things like that, is there some sort of transition that you expect in terms of the demands on the company?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're been a large part of what we've been providing, but as you'll see from the list of staff that we've recruited over the last 4 months, there's a massive range, and we've got certainly pressures in other areas currently, lots of social workers needed, as they are nationally. Quite a lot in terms of transport and planning and sort of coming out of the pandemic, which is positive. And there's a fair number that have been needed across the business admin support, customer service, that kind of thing, just changing the way in which the council's working and being able to support that in a different way.
And are you doing more or less work for schools and other sort of organisations apart from the council? Is that?
We've been busier in schools, certainly in the last, up until school holidays. Worked with more schools in that period than in the last year. So far, schools just about going back. Most of them that haven't got any children in today. We've got bookings for 20 schools already, and schools are not back yet. So we're expecting to be busy with school staff, and we've been doing some active recruitment of more supply teachers and teaching assistants and school admin staff as well. And we've been having bookings from across the board from different disciplines in schools. So we are anticipating need there.
Okay, thank you.
I've just got a couple of daft questions. The first one is really silly, and I think I missed it. I thought you worked with York, not City of York Trading Limited. When did that happen, or was I asleep?
We have always been City of York Trading Limited as our formal name. The bit that provides to the council is called Work with York. We have Work with Schools, which is our education division.
I read further on, but
then Work with Yorkshire, which is the new commercial bit, yes. But we go by either.
That's what I was just reading. I thought, pardon? Who are these? Who are they going on?
Yeah, it's a bit of an identity
could we,
crisis.
I'm going to ask you a question on the confidential bit. So could we stop the recording, please?
Well, I think there was I think there is mention in the report of it.
September. You're interviewing in September, is that right?
They're interviewing this week. One of the reasons why Greg is still coming on the train, despite this in this meeting, is to meet the prospective with the candidates for the chief executive position.
Okay. So that'll be probably 2 or 3 months' time when they can start, then is my guess, maybe 4 or 5, depending what's going on.
Obviously, depending on their notice period, etc.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was one of my questions.
That's good.
So there we go. Both great minds think alike. Just, have you got any other before? No. Just in general terms, I mean, to copy the word that Patrick used, the business was decimated. I mean, along with I don't think it was hit, I think you were hit harder probably than parts of hospitality because of how you work across various different areas. The numbers, I am told, in York are now above pre-pandemic levels, the footfall. So we're coming along quite nicely, despite what you read in the press, especially the business news, which says that the numbers are suppressed. So in Leeds and Blackpool and places like that, they're down, but here we're up. I've read the narrative. I didn't look at the numbers too closely this time because I think one of you gentlemen put in, there's not a lot of point. You know, there's not a lot of point comparing one to the other. So I looked at them and thought, no, there is not a lot of point. Building on the narrative, what do we all need to be doing to get you back to where you were, so that the monies are repaid and that you are a cracking concern going forward?
Well, I think it's fair to say that there's an awful lot of conversation going on within Make It York at the moment, and also with Make It York's, various partners about precisely that. I hesitate to use a cricket analogy given the current state of cricket.
What is the score?
Don't ask.
Oh no. I thought we'd cracked them. I haven't had a look today.
I think, like a lot of the country, Make It York has been sort of on the back foot, very defensive naturally over the past year, but is now starting to sort of step forward a bit more, and that is definitely the sort of phase transitioning from what was a horrific time, and looking forward to the new normal, and that throws up opportunities. And I think what we're doing is we're looking for opportunities. So we are, we've already commenced the typical planning that Make It York would do in terms of building a plan, doing a budget for next year. But it has increased relevance, increased importance, coming off the back of that experience. Now, it has been terrific in some aspects since the end of lockdown, but then you start to get into the details, and Ash will know a lot more about this than myself, but you start to look at the type of visitor, and obviously with very restricted international visitors, there is a different pattern to that, and you have to respond to that. So I think the support that Make It York has received during the pandemic from the council and from the officers has been terrific, and I think it would be great to be able to continue to receive that support. But an awful lot of what Make It York needs to do to emerge strong from this is already happening.
Right. Okay.
And I think the appointment of a new chief executive will be part of that, but part of it's already started, as I say, in terms of the internally within Make It York and discussions with partners about how best to respond now.
One of the conversations we have a lot with our residents is how we move the city centre from being stags and hens into being families, into being higher spending, into being whatever. I think it's moving that way because you see the cafe culture happening, and even by them physically being there, all right, Micklegate's always an exception, but even by them physically being there, you can see the behaviours in the city starting to alter. Am I missing something, or is that something that Make It York have noticed as well, or am I just looking at it with some glasses?
I think you're quite right. I mean, Make It York has already commissioned and received a report on sort of the future of tourism, which I don't know whether you want to...
Yeah, we commissioned a report from Group NAO, a Copenhagen-based destination marketing agency, on the future of tourism in York, which we worked through the Tourism Advisory Board and various stakeholders across the city in putting that together. That report very much talks more about sustainability and resident engagement and so on. So I think that's something we can very much use over the next 6 to 12 month period with planning for the new tourism strategy, and then an interim marketing plan over the next 6 months or so. But I think we may not eliminate the stags and hens completely. It's not an audience that we actively target, but you're right, through targeting more resident engagement, more of a family audience coming into the city, and certainly more cultural events as well. I think that is very much changing the profile of people in the city centre.
Okay, thank you. I only have one last question, and you might want to just come back to me on this. I don't know whether it sits in your area, Patrick, or not. I've had a couple of kind of cross conversations from people about tendering processes, how we tender things out with Make It York. So how Thor's TP was agreed to go in Parliament Street and how other stuff. Is it possible to see what that process is? Without you know, I won't take it anywhere else. It's just so that I know that it's transparent, I know that it's fair, I know everything else that's in there. Is that a possibility?
When you say is it possible to see, you mean now? Or
yeah, what you do each time. So when you put Thor's TP up in Parliament Square, how do you go about doing that? So that it is Thor's TP, or it's Paula's TP, or it's Patrick's TP, you know, how do you go around tendering those big pieces of business?
I'm unfortunately not aware of how that was tendered because my involvement with Make It York is fairly recent. What I do know is that we are currently working on a revised scheme of delegation, which I believe will come to this committee after it's been through the board. So that will be I would have thought on the agenda for March, i.e. the revised procedures. As to what's happened historically, we would have to get back to you on that. I don't think I can answer a specific query about a specific tender this point.
If you could just let me know roughly, I don't need all the detail, what happened over the summer with that one. And then before March, if I could see how we're doing it going forward, because that is a question I get asked.
Absolutely.
And then I need to be able to say, I've seen it, you know, it's transparent, it's open, it's this, here's the process written down.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. They were all my questions. Andy? Anything, gentlemen?
Nothing from me, thank you.
You can leave if you wish to. Good luck with the interviewing process.
Thank you very much. Turn this off.
Got the work plan, yeah. Thank you. So, looking at the work plan, I had no comments or updates. Any, Debbie?
It was just to say that when we originally put the work plan together for this committee, I think I had an aspiration that this would be the business plan, this would be the mid-year review, but because all the companies work slightly differently, slightly different timescales, that's not been possible. So we've essentially just put an update from every company on each meeting. Yeah. Is that okay? Because then sometimes it'll be, you know,
business plan, sometimes
it's
fine.
And I have also, following our correspondence, Paula, I have added on to the November meeting an update on the Municipal Bonds Agency.
Brilliant.
Which isn't something that is necessarily relevant to the shareholder committee, but it was an opportunity just to tell you what it is and explain a bit of the background. So that was everything.
Just to respond to that point, then perhaps, as you said, if some have got different reporting cycles, in the course of time we might identify, you know, an annual cycle for each organisation would probably be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that was my original intention, so that you would know a bit more about what was coming. But that's been more challenging than I had originally anticipated, put it that way. So yes, we shall work towards that.
Okay.
That's lovely. I mean, and we're getting the information through now. It's much more comprehensive and it's much clearer. So, you know, we are getting what we need to make the decisions on, because the aim is that they run their own businesses, but we know that they're in control and that everything's okay. Yeah?
You're holding them to account, aren't you?
Yeah.
So the point is that they come and you ask them questions. So
absolutely. So I don't have any other questions on the work plan. I'm not aware of any urgent business.
Nope, none from me.
Nope. Okay, so meeting closed. Thank you.